Greetings one and all. This is Dr. David Roots coming at you again with a different sort of video this time. Usually I do videos that are more about spirituality, mindset, esoteric, understanding of nature and things along those lines. But this is a more practical video. It's something I really wanted to do because when I was going through what I was going through relating to this what do you want to call it, disorder. I don't want to call it illness, but more of a disorder, costochondritis. I know that if it wasn't for all of the information that I received on the internet from YouTube and websites, I wouldn't have been able to get through the costochondritis like I was able to get through. And believe me, when you're going through it, anyone that's going through this costochondritis, whether you've identified it as that or not, it is something that can really bother you physically as well as mentally. Okay, so I decided to do this video for that very reason. I could have just kept it quiet, but it's something that I think would benefit and help others as well. So costochondritis, what is it and how does it feel? First, a disclaimer, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm only sharing this information based off of my own experience. When I was going through this this sort of disorder, this issue, I sought medical advice. I sought both like contemporary or allopathic medical advice, as well as I sought alternative medical advice, which I speak about a bit later. So please go and do your own research. I am not giving you any sort of medical advice to act on. That's up for you to go and do your own research and then listen to your own body, okay? Because your body will tell you exactly what are some of the issues that you're going through. So what is it? Well, the textbook definition is an inflammation of the cartilage of the ribs. For those people that don't know, you have the ribs, which are bone, and then you have cartilage, which interconnects the ribs to the sternum. Okay, and then you have some ribs which are kind of like floating, so you can go and look that up. But when that cartilage becomes inflamed for whatever reason, whether to do with some sort of infection, overuse, or whatever, that's where they label this sort of syndrome as costochondritis. Okay, and itis has normally to do with like arthritis, and bursitis is normally to do with inflammation, and I believe costo is to do with the chest, or could be the chondra aspect. But nevertheless, you can go and look that up. For me, what did it feel like? Well, it was a sharp pain in your chest as well as a dull pain that was kind of there all the time. But the sharp pain could be exacerbated by breathing. So at its worst, I was and it wouldn't necessarily, it can be exacerbated as well. I talk about by exercise, but you don't necessarily feel the pain when you're exercising. For me, at least, I would be going for my runs, playing football, and I wouldn't have any issue. I'll be doing painting, wouldn't have any issue. But the next day, this chest pain feeling would be there, and I believe that was a connection between the exercise I had done the day before, which would have engaged the cartilage and the muscles of the chest and the moving of the chest, and obviously then the next day there would be some soreness. That sharp pain I'm talked about is that sometimes if I was laying down in certain positions, especially at nighttime, there are certain times when the pain was often unbearable, and I had to find different positions to lay on. I had to lay on the floor, things like that. It could be exacerbated by breathing, whether that's breathing in or breathing out. I'm sure everyone has a different experience, but when you read on the internet of different experiences from other people, they all kind of say the same thing. It feels like you're having a heart issue, or pneumonia, or you just know something is wrong with your chest. There's something that you feel was wrong with your chest. Now, as some background, I am a person that is very athletic. I'm 46 at the time of making of this video. I exercise at least 5 to 6 days a week. That includes strength training, no gym stuff, so things like push-ups and sit-ups, and have my routine. On Tuesdays I will be going running. Wednesdays is all my core work and ab work. Thursdays I play football. Saturdays I'll be doing running and skipping. And before I had the episode of the costochondritis, which lasted for several months, I was very fit. So that's maybe people who are kind of into exercise might get it more. Maybe I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, as a health background, very fit, eat very well. I pretty much eat mostly a plant-based diet. Very healthy the way I eat. So this could happen to anybody, put it that way. And I remember for me, when I first noticed it, and I'm sharing this information because, as I said, I believe in the first part of the slide, other people may be going through similar things that I went through, and this would help them. I know that for me, right now it's August 2021 when I'm making this video, and I first had this issue occur in December 2020. Okay. And I remember I live in London, and as I said, I would be doing my exercise, my running, and I just remember that December 2020 was very, very cold. And London cold is this sort of damp cold, so it's not just cold, but it's also very damp as well. If it's possible to be damp and dry, I don't know, but it's very damp, and it gets right into the body, so you really have to wrap up and stuff like that. But the air is also very dry, so the ground and all that around you is very damp, but the air is very dry. It can be very cold, and this winter it was particularly cold, but nevertheless you would just go running. And I remember when I was after one of my runs and skipping, that I just noticed the cold in particular, as well as in my chest. And to me, I believe that had that was part of the initial start of the costochondritis, whether that invited some sort of infection, like a chest infection. And I didn't have any symptoms of things like that, no coughing with mucus, anything. But whether that invited, I did have a bit of coughing, so it was like a dry sort of cough felt from the chest, because you'd feel, and when you have costochondritis, because you have this sort of chest pain, it makes you want to cough, even though you don't really have a problem with your lungs, but you think it could be your lungs. So what I'm trying to say with this part is that possibly the cold and the exposure to the elements not being properly protected, maybe the type of diet that I was eating at that time was very much on a vegan diet, not getting warm fluids and so on and so on, not getting the correct nutrients, maybe possibly led to a weakness in the system there, exacerbated by the cold. And all of the exercises that I was doing with the push-ups and the planks, and like I said, the skipping, which directly engages that part of the body, possibly that's what led to me developing this syndrome that they call costochondritis. When you have it, and when you read the information on the internet, it feels at its worst. It can feel like you're having some sort of heart issue. Okay, you definitely feel like you're having a heart issue, possibly early heart attack, or some sort of lung issue. And right now we're in COVID time, so you think that, is it related to your lungs? You just don't know, because you feel this inflammation, irritation in your chest. Okay, so if any of you are feeling those sorts of symptoms, then it's possibly costochondritis, and it can be quite worrisome. Okay, especially if you're into health, because it's coming from this area, you haven't had an injury or anything like that. It's possibly could be costochondritis. So don't feel overly worried, because that is part of something that I also went through, that you get this real anxiety because it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it can be quite pronounced, the sort of pain. Okay, so let's keep going with my presentation so it's not too long. So what didn't work and what did not work? The next couple of slides, that's what I'm going to talk about, what did work and what did not work. So as I said, as this was happening to me, unfortunately around that same time my mother also passed. So she passed this came about, I started feeling it in December 2020. She passed in January 2021, and that required me to do some traveling. She had an initial period of where she was severely ill, and then she passed away, and all through that I was going through these issues of this costochondritis, which at that time I did not have an identification for what it was, because I was just kind of going through things on my own. And what was I doing when it first happened? Before my mother had her issues, I remember December, I used to just take Tiger Balm, and I would, if you don't know what Tiger Balm is, it's like an ointment that heats up. I don't like to use those sorts of pain relieving ointments personally. I try to use all natural things, so I was using Tiger Balm, and I'll be rubbing it on my chest, in this area here, okay, on my neck and back and so on and so on, because I just didn't know what was going on. But that definitely helped. The warming aspect of the Tiger Balm, it's got menthol and it's got cinnamon in it, it can have cayenne in it, or capsaicin in it. That definitely helped, but it did not make it go away. So that's what I was initially doing. And I think, did I go and see the doctor? No, I don't think I saw the doctor yet, okay, because I had to do all of the traveling. And so I had to then travel to my country of birth, which is Bermuda, in order to deal with the issues that was going on with my mom and things like that. And for me, it got so bad, the feeling, that I actually went to an emergency room, because when I had traveled back home to Bermuda, I didn't have any, obviously. I live in London, so I was traveling back home, and my doctor resides in London. So the best way to get treatment without waiting a long waiting period for a doctor was just to go to the emergency room. And it was bothering me that much that I went to the hospital emergency room. Bermuda has very good hospitals and so on. So I went to the hospital emergency room and told them I was having this pain in my chest. I'm 46, so you start to think of all the worst things, whether it's some sort of heart issue, lung issue, is it COVID, things along those lines. Because I was traveling, I had lots of COVID tests, so I wasn't, I didn't think I had any COVID, but you never know, you just don't know because of the issue and the way it feels. In the emergency room, they did what doctors normally do if you come in for any sort of heart, chest related issue. They took the ECG, electrocardiogram. They also took bloods, and they looked for anything to do with the heart. Okay, and all of that came back normal. My pulse was normal. Everything was normal. And that's the thing about costochondritis, is that you can't see anything on the outside, and to everyone else you just look totally fine, but inside you're feeling these issues. Okay, and even the medical information, the bloods and all of that, will probably be totally fine because it's just an inflammation of this particular area. Okay, so after that did make me feel better, that the emergency room doctors said that there was no medical issue that they could see outright, but it did not make it go away. And throughout the course of that time, I also, it started to get worse as well. Okay, after I had gone to the medical room and had to pay lots of money for that, and so it didn't settle my brain. So I started to look at alternative things, and I list some of the things here that I did. I went to see a chiropractor, because I'm thinking maybe it's something structurally wrong with me. And the chiropractor, I went to the chiropractor on the advice of a masseuse. I went to see a masseuse. So these are the things that did not work. So I went to the chiropractor. They looked at my my alignment, they also advised that it was probably costochondritis. By the way, the first person that actually put this idea in my head about costochondritis and what it could be, me thinking of all these other things, was my brother's wife, who is a nurse, and she was down there along with my brother in the attending of my mother's funeral arrangements and things like that. And she was the one, after I told them what was going on, that they were like, well, it sounds like costochondritis, and that she had had it before. And she told me to just take some ibuprofen, Tylenol sorts of things, and I would be okay. So that's how I first heard about the costochondritis, and then started to do my own research. So the chiropractor also kind of said that's what it sounds like. And basically what they did was they did an adjustment where they pushed down on my actually, did she do that? Yeah, she pushed down on my chest to see if they can align that a bit. My chest, she said it looked fine, but just to make sure it was aligned. And she basically did some massage in this sort of region of my shoulder blade and upper in my shoulder. Okay. And that lasted for about a 30-minute appointment. She did talk more than she actually did anything. And no disrespect to any chiropractor, but for me, that was just kind of like a waste of my money. That did not work. And I didn't even decide to go back for a return appointment. I went and saw my local in Bermuda, very highly recommended and well vouched for, well qualified Chinese medical therapist, okay, Chinese medical doctor. And he also did some acupuncture on me. He did some adjustments as well. He did massage, and that was helpful. But I would say that the acupuncture did not relieve the symptoms at all. I had 2 courses of acupuncture, and that didn't relieve the symptoms at all. Excuse me. After doing lots of research, people talking about the inflammation and how to take anti-inflammatories, I went and bought some very expensive fish oil. I tried to take in turmeric. I took more hemp oil. I bought some hemp oil tablets, and those sorts of things, those natural supplementations, obviously they are something that you want to include in your life in general. Okay, so maybe I should have been taking them before. I eat a lot of hemp in terms of like protein powders, but how much of the oil is actually in that protein powder? So that didn't work for me either, probably because it was just such a short time. You can't take an anti-inflammatory and think that it's going to happen, overnight, over the course of a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. Anti-inflammatory drugs, when it was at its worst, I don't take painkillers, but when it was at its worst, I definitely took some of the anti-inflammatory drugs like Tylenol and which is ibuprofen. And even though those things work for pain killing, they did not help with the costochondritis at all. Okay. And if you look at the list of things I tried over that period of time, the costochondritis lasted from, as I said, December all the way until, I would say, May. Okay, so what's that? January, February, March, April, May. So like 5 to 6 months. And because of the severity of it, which would go up and down, but it could be quite severe, I tried many different things. And the last thing on that list was CBD oil. There's so much information out there about CBD oil. I got CBD oil rubs, which is supposed to be pain reliever. I would rub it on that sort of the area of the chest, and that didn't relieve the pain either. Okay, so I think because costochondritis affects the cartilage and not the muscles, those sort of anti-inflammatories as well that you take internally, as well as the things you rub on your skin, is not going to penetrate into the muscle like it would if it was, it's not going to penetrate into the cartilage like it would if it was muscle. Muscles have lots of blood flow. Cartilage are notoriously difficult to heal, and just like ligaments and things like that, they don't have much blood flow into it. They need different things in order to heal. They need cell replacement in order to heal. And I think that's why those sorts of things did not necessarily work. So let's look at what did work. So what worked somewhat, and then I have one more slide that's about what worked. Going to the masseuse, and this was a professional masseuse, was very helpful. It was helpful in the sense that they were able to identify the specific areas that I was having problems. It was very painful because they really went in, as you know, from masseuse. And I found that there was a lot of connection between my shoulder blade underneath, like where you're, I'm not sure what this part of your body is, but here on your shoulder, the back of your shoulder blade, underneath that there's these muscles. I was also having a lot of pain from time to time in those particular areas. And so it was like a connection between the front pain and that back area as well as the neck and the shoulder in general. And so they were massaging, and he was doing lots of professional massage, and he was able to identify specific points for me, which allowed me to target my healing a lot more. And as he said, that pain that you're feeling is going to loosen up the muscles. I had lots of knots, huge knots, K-N-O-T-S, in my muscles, and that was probably exacerbating and leading to some of the issues which we're going to talk about in terms of the costochondritis on the front. Okay, as I said earlier, tiger balm and the different ointments, some poo oil, which I got from the acupuncturist, those things also helped as well to when you needed some immediate relief. So I use tiger balm for everything, and it never fails. Okay, stretching also helped. Now, particular type of stretching I'll talk about in the next slide as to what worked. What definitely worked, because there's specific stretching, but the stretching did not make it go away, but it definitely helped to do stretching. So we're talking about pushing your arms back. Like now, I've been doing lots of pull-ups, so I need to make sure I am doing my stretching so I don't get the same issues again. Pushing my arms back, going to a door. You can look up stretches for costochondritis, and that will help to stretch and lengthen the issues with the muscles, which then, because the muscles are like elastics, so that if the muscles are tight, then that's going to put tension on the cartilage. Okay, but I'm going to save that for the next slide, as the slide where I talk about what definitely worked for me. So what worked the most? Now, this is the most important part of my presentation, so hopefully you've either stuck around to hear this or you forwarded to this part. First thing that worked was identifying the root cause. As I said, this was a long journey of having this particular issue in my chest. Okay, now the root cause. So physically, what was the root cause? If you go and watch this man's video on the lower left-hand corner, he talks about the root causes. This was one of the videos that actually opened my eyes up as to what was going on. It helped me more than any doctor, the emergency room. This particular video helped me to understand what the real issue was. And that root cause, as they said, is not necessarily the inflammation, but it's the connection between your muscles, your back, and the flexibility and tension that's in your back. And he goes into it in detail in his video. Okay, but very briefly, if you have tension in your back and your shoulders, okay, then that's going to pull on your ribs, okay, in the front, and then pull on that cartilage, and that cartilage over time can become inflamed. Or you could also have issues with your posture. So if you're leaning forward like this, I'm a teacher, so I'm always at my desk, I'm using a computer. You know, if you're quite stressed because you're using a computer all the time, if you're quite stressed and as a result you're using a computer all the time because you're doing work or you're trying to put out content on the internet or have financial issues, so you end up being on your computer, your shoulders are getting hunched and you're pushing in to your chest, so you're collapsing your chest. So your posture and improving your posture is one of the root causes and root remedies of getting rid of this costochondritis. Okay, so please go and watch his video, as well as the I think they're called Brad and Bob. They're on the right, two physiotherapists. They also do a great video on the different stretches that you can use to help to get rid of or help to relieve the costochondritis. Some of the information that they share actually talks, the man on the left, who is also a doctor, a physiotherapist in Australia, he shares in a more detailed way. So really go and watch those two videos. They explain the root causes physically of costochondritis and how, you know, stretching, the right types of stretching, especially at the back and the connection between the back is very important. Okay, now the root cause emotionally. My wife tells me that when I first started to have those chest issues was when I first found out that my mother was ill, and I told her that I thought it was happening before that, but she swears down that, you know, it actually kind of coincided around the same time. So within Chinese medicine and alternative medicine, like Ayurvedic medicine, there is a connection between emotions. So in this case, it would be worry, grief, you know, stress, and the heart and the lungs, okay, which is AKA the chest area. So for me personally, there is a definite connection between the emotional aspects of my life and the impact that it was having on my posture, on my body, on my breathing, the shallow breathing, okay, as well. So if you're not breathing properly, you're also going to put, if you're not breathing properly and you're breathing quite shallow and quite high, you are not going to fill out your lungs the way they should be, and that's also going to create tension and tightness in your chest, and that can become chronic after a while because it's something you're doing over and over, day in and day out. And so when it was at its worst was definitely after my mother had passed, and I was dealing with helping to put together her arrangements and things like that. And I was suffering from a lot of anxiety. I wasn't eating properly, you know, having heart palpitations, all sorts of different things. And that chest tightness both contributed to feeling those things more, as well as those things probably made that more. So it's like a feedback cycle. So for those of you who are experiencing costochondritis, I suggest you look at your life and look at the physical issues, as well as, more importantly, the emotional issues. Because if you try to get rid of the physical issues without dealing with the emotional issues, it probably won't work. Okay, now what worked the most for me, this is when I got like actually resolved the issue and it kind of went away, was the use of my percussion massager. My wife had actually just given me, you know, everything happens for a reason, isn't it? So my wife had given me this for a Christmas present, okay, for a present, and I think it was Christmas, and so she had given me this. Now I don't participate in the whole Christmas thing, but your wife gave you a gift, so why not? So anyway, she had given me this as a Christmas present. Never really used it, but when I finally came back to London from dealing with my mother and dealing with those issues with for the family, something just came to my mind, probably from the amount of research that I was doing, okay, on costochondritis and how to relieve it and things along those lines, that I should try this. Because there was this one aspect about it, is that it felt as if, well, one, there was for me, there was on that second rib, there was a tender spot. And so I was reading a lot about second rib release. This is where you put a strap around you and you breathe out, you tighten it, and helps to move your ribs and give more flexibility to your rib. And then I was reading about so if this is a tender spot, how you could relieve it. Okay, so I just thought, well, let me try use my percussion massage. And if you don't know about the percussion massager, all it is a machine that you charge up, and when you turn it on, it vibrates. So I don't know if you can see it going back and forth, and has different attachments. Like this, it's like a blade attachment, flat attachment, you know, lots of attachments. This sort of ball attachment, and the one I preferred was this one, but I think I started with this one. And I said, well, let me just try to, if this is caused by, after I watched these guys' videos, if this is caused by inflammation and tightness of the muscles in the back and the chest, as well as inflammation, let me use this as a way to actually stimulate the blood flow to those areas. Okay, and so the way I used this was I had the flat blade like that, okay, and I would run it. I was just running it up and down the chest. I turned it up quite high, and I was running it. So you need to look at the anatomy of the ribs, and you'll see that you have the ribs, and in between you have the muscles, the intercostal muscles, and you have the cartilage. So I was running it along the muscles, okay, along the muscles, mostly on my right side because that's where I was feeling it, okay. And I also was using this blade here, the flat blade, okay. Now do not hit bone with this, all right, but anyway, I was using this like that, especially on that tender spot that I had. Any tender spots, I would kind of concentrate on it. Okay, and I was doing that on a daily basis, like in the morning time. And I noticed when I was using this particular blade in particular, this one in particular, that when I was doing this area, turned it up a bit, and I was kind of left it on this particular area, I started to cough. And you could feel, this is just my own perception, I'm just giving you my own experience. You could feel like almost like a layer, a lining of mucus breaking up on this area. And I personally believe that the inflammation that was bothering me in particular, because I remember I mentioned in the beginning of this video about the cold, I personally believe that that it was a combination of a sort of infection from the cold, okay, like exercise-induced asthma and exercise-induced bronchitis from the cold, and which created a low-level inflammation of the tissue in this area. Okay, inflammation, I mean from infection. And because there are different linings, so you have your lungs, and then you have what's called the pleuris, which is like the lining above the lungs, and then you have the muscles, of course, and so there are different layers, some of them very thin. And I think for me, when I was using this in particular, you could feel that kind of breaking up, and it hadn't had an opportunity to do that at that level before. All of the stretching and things like that didn't really do it, but this, the vibration of this, that constant, on my chest here, once that happened, I was coughing and stuff like that, the issues with my costochondritis went away. So for me, this was the most effective and beneficial tool that I use, more so than the massage and the acupuncture. One of these, and I'm a big fan of massage anyway, and I know that if you have like a sprained ankle or sprained muscle, you need to do what we call palpitation in order to actually break up the scar tissue. So there is for me a connection between using this as well as this blade as well, okay, and the impact, that positive impact that it had on my costochondritis. So if you're going through costochondritis and you're looking for a solution, I definitely would suggest this. Please watch videos on how to use it properly, research it, so on and so on. Do not use it around your neck area because there are certain arteries and veins here. Okay, get a partner, get your spouse or a partner to really help you with this. In particular, don't just do the chest, but do the back area as well. The connections of the ribs to the spine. So both connections you want to do here, up and down, the connections around and the back area. Okay, and even after your costochondritis, if you exercise a lot, after it's gone, use it for exercise, and because this is a good way to create circulation, increase circulation, stimulate blood flow, and where there's blood there's healing, isn't it? Okay, so for me that was the thing that worked the most with costochondritis, and to help me alleviate costochondritis. I think that is my last slide. Yes, it is. It says slide 5 of 5. So I'm going to leave you with that. The video is not too long, okay? But identify those root causes, the physical, by watching the videos so you can understand what the top physiotherapists have identified with costochondritis, and showing how it's not necessarily related to inflammation at all. It's related to the back. But also, as I said, for me, I believe that the cold had an impact and created some infection, aka which then led to inflammation. All right, and the emotional side of things. Okay, go and research Chinese medicine. They talk about the connection between the organs, the heart, and the lungs, with the emotions of worry and grief, and use the percussion massage. I hope this has been helpful. My name is Dr. David Roots. Give thanks. This is not my normal video, so if you're into other sorts of things regarding natural health, esoteric spirituality, please go ahead and watch some of the other videos on my channel if you wish. Give thanks.